Hey there, vinyl community. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about a little sub-genre of the club scene that I used to be a little bit part of and go to, which was the goth scene. You know, goth seems to be one of those areas that just always finds a place. You know, every generation kind of has a goth sound that certain group of young people gravitate towards. I suppose there will always be those kind of, brooding, heavy-minded kids who are looking for their own identity, and goth was certainly a part of that for us. And there was a couple goth bars in the Detroit area. There was the Leland City Club, which was downtown, in the basement of the Leland Hotel, which is still around. And then there was another place that's gone now called Todd's, which was during the week it was kind of a gay bar, and then on the weekends they would do like they would open it up and it would be like a goth kind of club, and we would go in there and dance till all hours of the night. So probably the band people think of most is Bauhaus, and great band, and just amazing vocals, and always really interesting. And I think probably the other band that people most think of is the Sisters of Mercy. This is another great record. I don't know how many people know about it. I don't see it get shown too often in the vinyl community, but maybe it does. And this is probably their best full length. They did a lot of great 12 inches and a lot of great singles. This is probably their best full length album. Although this is probably the record most people know. And it's good. It had some. The 12 inches from this were better than the LP versions of it. It's not a bad album, but a little more commercial minded on this, and kind of big budget videos and stuff kind of ruins some of the ruined some of it for me, but not bad. And another good one was so then there were a lot of bands that were kind of goth adjacent, like Specimen, who were kind of punk, and then with a lot of goth overtures. And there's a killer track on here called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, really good. Check it out if you're at all into that sound. This is a good EP, real good EP. And then there was so when I think of magazine, I generally think of like post-punk, but the whole post-punk thing was very intermixed with a lot of goth. And this definitely had a lot of goth influences, and but still certainly kind of what I would call post-punk. But a great record. In fact, on Peter Murphy's solo record, which I should have pulled out, on his first solo record, he does a cover of The Light Pours Out of Me. And really good cover. And his first solo record is well worth checking out. I highly recommend it. Kind of it's not, it flirts with a little bit of goth, of course. It's got his voice, but really he goes off in kind of an art school direction. And it kind of works. It works for Peter. He also does a cover of a Perubu track too on that first record. But yeah, great record. And then today when we think of like The Cure, people think of like a pop band almost. And but when the Cure that I was always most interested were like the albums in the very late 70s and then the very early 80s. And these are really, 17 Seconds, Pornography, Forest is on here. But these are really, really very close to the goth sound, very atmospheric, very heavy, with general themes, down kind of themes about them. Love the covers of these three albums. Just beautiful. And these albums are really, I mean, they're really, really beautiful records. Beautiful in the kind of depressing, down sense of it, but really great records that I really grew up on these records. And then probably my favorite Cure record was Faith, and just all gray. Look at that cover, just minimal. Love it. Funeral Party is on here. All Cats Are Gray. Drowning Man. The Holy Hour. Yeah, definitely had that goth, and then goth went over into even into industrial music, and so it flirted around with a lot of industrial bands. Flirted around with those. The one I think of right away is like Skinny Puppy, and I think this had Smothered Hope on it, which definitely has a goth. It has that industrial sound, but definitely flirting around with a lot of goth influences on there. And yeah, these early Skinny Puppy records certainly did that. Skinny Puppy was an interesting band. They actually had a couple of interesting points in their career. These early, more industrial sounding records had some club hits. Smothered Hope, Dig It. Those were big club hits in the goth clubs and everything. And then they became they got mixed up. They did a lot of projects with Al Jurgensen from Ministry, and then they got more like a metal, an industrial metal sound, which I didn't care for all that much. Although there was a couple of good 12 inches that came out of that period, and then they really went even more into electronic music. There's an album later in their career called Too Dark Park, which love to have that on vinyl. I don't have it, but I'd love to. It's a great record, a really interesting record, and they're worth checking out if you're interested in that kind of music at all. And then, although we don't think of them as goth at all today, this very first Ministry record always found a place on our playlists. This is kind of a new wave synth album that had lots of goth themes and atmosphere running through about half of the record anyway, and the other half being pretty commercial synth new wave sound. But this was an important part of those years for me was this first album, and then their second album, Twitch. Another good record. But anyway, yeah, there were a couple of cool little bars. Todd's, we used to go live in there, be in there a couple days a week, every weekend, and you could stay until 3-4 o'clock in the morning. What was great about this bar was that you'd go down into the basement. The dance floor was upstairs, and it was really a beautiful bar inside. It was an old bar that they had reopened, and it was a shame kind of what you could see, the grandeur of what used to be there. All that Art Nouveau styling was all over the place, but it was all kind of deteriorating and falling apart, which just kind of added to the whole goth look of it, And then there was a dance floor, and then you could go downstairs, and there were all these catacombs that would roam around and then eventually empty into a larger room. There would be little tables set up, and you'd see people sitting there and smoking clove cigarettes and having a good time, and then eventually you'd go into the larger room, and there would be a screen, and they would be showing, how can I put it? They'd be showing films, but they would be films that were pretty pretty interesting films that they would be showing in there. Stuff, certainly nothing you would see in any other kind of bar or anything. First time I ever went in there, I was probably 16 years old, and yeah, it was pretty interesting. Yeah, cool scene, and it was a big part of growing up, and kind of after high school and the first part of college, going out and finding our way into that scene, and made a lot of cool friends. And there were a lot of DJ Charles English used to spin records, and he just died a few years ago. And there's even a Facebook page dedicated to the club, and you can see how much it meant to the people who got it, who were part of that, and that we'll never forget it. It was the first time you ever had a bar, at least in this area, that everyone was kind of invited to. So you would see, people of all races and people of all, ethnicities and gender and sexual orientation. All that stuff didn't matter at all. You would see gays and straights and everyone mixing together and dancing and which doesn't seem like a big deal today. And it seems like even silly to mention it, but back then, it wasn't. You didn't see that often. You'd go into a club and 99% of the people in there would be of the same race, and that's the music. Some of the great music, techno music, goth music, helped break a lot of those stereotypes down, and start to see people meet and mix who just were there to hear great music. So anyway, thought I'd show a few cool records and mention a cool scene that was a big part of my young adulthood, and hope everyone's well, and thanks.